at observational versus controlled study. So I guess maybe let's just talk about what that means. So observation versus controlled study. Do you know kind of what they talked about, what the difference is between the two of them? Like, what do you understand about observational versus controlled?
You want me to go?
Anybody can go, please.
Okay. So an observational study is something in which no treatment is applied. You're strictly viewing what's happening.
Yeah.
But like an experiment or a controlled study has an actual control element to it, and there's actual like treatment being applied. So it's
Right.
not just like an
Yeah.
observation.
Right. And exactly. That's a really good way to. And so like the observation is literally that you're just observing something that just naturally happens. So you're not really changing anything, you're just observing it. And the other thing is the way that they break it out, at least for this text and like for the work we're doing, they talk about random assignment. So a lot of times with the observational, if it's something someone's already doing, you're just observing. And there's no random assignment is a big thing that they talk about in this book. You're not applying it. It's not really experimental because you're not applying, like we talk about like, blind studies and randomly assigning. I would even go so far, we'll talk about the first one there, like we'll talk about in a second. So there's no random assignment. Within observation, they also talk about you cannot like, let me see. There's a word, I just want to make sure I say it right. You can say that there is like, I want to use the right word. One second. So it shows association. It doesn't show causation. Took me a second. The association was not coming to me. So you can say these things are associated. You can't say that it caused this because there could be what they call the confounding variables, right? There could be something else that's contributing to it. He mentioned in that video I watched, it's a really, there is this actually was a thing that happened, is really poor statistics. They said, and I think it was a newspaper article, I'm pretty sure I found this and I presented to my students in classes. They said, hey, when people, well, his was actually the inverse. So he had one about the hot chocolate. I'm going to talk about ice cream. They said, we've noticed that ice cream, when people eat more ice cream, it tends to be more crime. So that was the one that I've seen before. So that like, and so you can't, and they basically just ask people, like, are you eating a lot of, they notice people are eating ice cream. Hey, crime's increasing. Well, and like what he mentioned with the hot chocolate, it's the same co-founding things. Basically what's going on is people are eating ice cream, it's warm out. If it's warm out, you tend to have people going away from home, you might be summer, you have vacations, there's all these other things, right? And those things all lead typically to more crime. The inverse of that would be, hey, if it's cold, because people typically don't eat ice cream when it's cold. I mean, they do sometimes, but mostly they don't. So there's a decrease in ice cream. And when it's cold, people tend to stay home more. They're not on vacation. Maybe it's like even during when, like school and things, but you also have criminals are also staying home. Like people don't want to go out and like, especially in snowy places, maybe it's going to be harder to break into houses. It's going to be harder to, I don't know, like you have people home. You also have like snow and ice and other conditions. There's a lot of things. So there's all these other things. So that's like, we always talk about like cause, like that something being associated does not mean that it caused it. So that's where like an observation is an association. A controlled study, one of the things is you need that, you have an experiment, you're doing, you have the control of it, but you're randomly assigning your participants. A lot of times it's a blind study, so they don't know what group they're in, if they're a control or if they're part of the trial group. There's also, with this, you can say there's a causation sometimes, right? Like, hey, this links to it, depending on if it's statistically significant or not. So just these are some basic terms and definitions. They will come up a lot more in the future. So, and there's four, I think we have 4 problems here. So we're just going to kind of go through them together. But these are the big things that from this section, I guess it's 1.5 that we want to make sure we get just before we even start. So going through this now. Yeah. So yeah, there's more ice cream, then there's going to be more crime. That's the funny thing. So patients with high blood pressure asked to keep food diaries. So right there, that was to me for a 1-week period. So right away, your group is a certain group of people and they already know they have high blood pressure, right? You're not assigning people randomly, and maybe you are looking at patients with high blood pressure, but you haven't, you're asking people to just do something they already do, right? Researchers analyze the food diary for trends, indicate whether it's an observational study or a controlled experiment. So they are asking people to keep a diary of their food. They're not asking a group to modify it. They're not observing them. They're not randomly assigned. So this one would be what?
Observational.
Observational, good. And we're just gonna think about it before we even look at the choices below. It's observational, and why do we think that? Because we just say it, oh, sorry.
Because the people are like chosen and it's not random.
Right, yeah, they're just asking folks who are already doing something to do it. There was no random assignment to groups or categories, so there's no random assignment. Good, and so if we know that, then that makes the A, B, C, D choices easier, right? So this one's an observational, so the control's out. So now you're just down to these because there is no mention of random assignment. So, and just be careful, that no is really important. No mention of random assignment. Okay, and I'm gonna pause. Were you all, how did you feel about these questions before? Have you all taken the practice test?
I haven't taken it yet, but I'm gonna take it after this.
No, that's fine. I was just asking.
Okay. Well, if I'm being honest, I was thinking that it was controlled because like when you think of like control, like this is like controlling in a way. I don't know.
But see,
But
they're
no.
not controlling because they're not
Yeah.
telling the people to do
Yeah.
something. They're allowing them to do what they normally do.
Yeah. So
Control
now
example would be like if they said, hey, we're gonna take, this would probably be like your control group. If you had it like a normal experiment, because what you would do is you'd apply a treatment, like you would say, hey, we're gonna put, because like one thing with high blood pressure would be putting people on like the Mediterranean diet. That's something that's been shown to like lower blood pressure. So if they put people on that diet and they controlled their food and they had those people, like if they put people on something like that and had them keep a food diary, but like more than just if they asked them to go on a diet and then you had the normal people, right? And then they measured their blood pressure at the beginning and the end. And people, you know, that would be more of a control. It's not a blind one because they know what diet they're on. But yeah, so that would be more because they control what happens.
yeah, this like I'm pretty sure this wasn't in the notes that I like printed out of everything because
Okay.
I just like went because I wrote
He
all
talked about it in the videos. His videos are really good.
Okay, because I wrote down like the control group and like the blinding and double blinding.
Yeah, and honestly, I really think the videos are a little more linked to the homework than even like the notes.
Yeah, so because I just used the notes for like the definitions and everything.
Right. Yeah,
so
no, he did, and they're really short too, because like I was watching while I was working on this just to kind of get a sense of what he said to try and make sure mine linked up. But I mean, what we're doing is fine. I think going forward, honestly, like I said, I think it'd be good if y'all, even if you didn't want to write it down, just listen to the video so you have a sense of what's coming. Yeah, but anyway,
no, yeah, his videos are good.
He is, yeah, I mean, that's Ross. Yeah, he's good. He's, yeah, like I think he's the department chair now, so cool. But yeah, but we'll go through it too. So, okay. And thank you for being honest about missing, like not being sure, because I think a lot of people, it's just, again, one of those things, the more we do it, the better it'll get. Good. Anybody else? Did you all think the same thing? So they're just observing what these people normally do. So because they're just letting them continue with their daily life, that's just going to be observational, and they didn't assign them to a group. Okay. And that was the reason for this one. Let's see. I would also say it might be interesting to look at people who didn't have high blood pressure. That was the other thing, like everybody here has high blood pressure. So anyway, okay. Let's look at number 8, observational or controlled. So a local high school encourages but does not require. So right here, students to wear uniforms. So students self-select here, right? They're selecting whether or not they're wearing uniforms, because it's you know, they encourage it, they don't require it. So everybody's not wearing uniforms if you're selecting to wear it or not. The principal of the school compares the grade point averages of students at the school who wear uniforms with the GPA of those who do not wear uniforms to determine whether those wearing uniforms tend to have higher GPAs. So right away, there are two groups, right? You have students who are wearing the uniform and those who are not. But the principal is, but the students are self-selecting into the groups. So, and right away, I'm thinking, okay, who wears uniforms? Students whose parents make them, number one. And number two, possibly those who have the money to buy the uniform. So I mean, you could even have like a socioeconomical like spin on this where like, I mean, if people can't afford the uniforms, or on the flip side, maybe the kids with money buy the really expensive clothes and the people with less money, maybe they buy the uniforms, because I know like sometimes like Walmart and Target have the uniforms. So there could be a lot of like confounding things here, I think. And then the other thing, and so what he found was like, so the other thing would be like, maybe you see a result. That's what I was thinking too. Oh, no, it's a different one. But so like, sorry, I just got confused. So he compares those GPAs. So what do you think about this one? I kind of just said it, but do you think it's a controlled experiment or an observation?
An observational.
It's an observation because they're allowed to self-select, right? So this one's the assignment as well. It probably would have been better if I didn't look through it, because I was thinking of the one below too, what I was going to say. It's observational. And again, it's because they're self-selecting because they're choosing to wear the uniform. So it's observational and there's no random assignment. So it's that same idea. We may want to see if we can pull a few of these if we need to. And then, so I think that's it. So this is, so which choice? This is an
Oh,
observation.
I'm sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing like most of the tests gonna be like reading, like
That's what I said at the beginning. I'm afraid that because there's so much reading, I think it's where people just get tired.
it's not.
Yeah. There's a lot, but down below there'll be more computation coming up. The first part, we're really trying to like drill the definitions in, huh? Yeah, but there's a lot of reading. I mean, if we go down real quick, because that's a fair question, we start doing more with the graphs and things. So there's a lot of definition-y things, but there's some calculation, but the first two chapters, chapter 1 and 2, are a lot of definitions. We get into the more analytical part when we get into chapter 3. And I left the question identifiers on these, I think. So you can see the test is actually pretty evenly broken up. Chapter 3 is like 18 on-ish. And that'll be pretty similar to the test itself. But I mean, a lot of it, you can see there is definitely a lot of reading. So that's why I said we're going to do like 10, take a quick break, and then come back. The good thing is the practice test is going to be pretty close to the real test, right? So if you're comfortable with these questions and you've seen them, hopefully that means, you'll be familiar. You're not going to see something that you haven't seen altogether before. There's nothing new on this. But yeah, it definitely is going to be a lot of reading. That's why I recommend, doing the practice test, studying ahead of time, and you definitely want to take breaks and make sure you give yourself a good night's sleep, come into this fresh. I mean, you can look over it maybe a little bit, but I wouldn't do this after a full day of like class or after a full day of work, because your brain's going to be tired, right? Was that kind of what you were asking? Or did you have a different way you're going with that? I just want to make sure I answered what you were saying. Okay. So it's observational, right? We said that part, it's not controlled.
We had a joke that in stats that that stats is just AP laying, but
It
the
really
second
is.
time.
We said that in class about that one, Emma, the one you were asking about earlier. And I think you asked this question in class too. This, to me, this problem, a lot of folks had trouble with it. It was, oh wait, not this one. I'm sorry, number 4, not this one. The problem with this one to me more was like English and the way that we state things than it is with the math. It's like which one goes where. And again, that's English language, but it's also like how you're interpreting that English language in a statistical way. So there's layers to this for sure. But yeah, I know it is. It's very much a language thing, like making sure you're understanding how they're applying the words. And it's very little nitpicky. That I don't love multiple choice. I guess they're trying to help, but.
Are we going to get into writing and experiment design too?
Okay. Oh, Amelia, you're fine. And I will, yeah, and I'll post it, like I said, in there. And then if you have any questions, let me know. Amelia too, if you have any questions when you're going through, if you guys are going back doing chapter 3 or anything, let me know. I'm going to try and get some of those out as well. So I'm going to go back through some of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So
One more question.
Yeah.
So is the test open today or is it open up tomorrow?
It's open today. Oh, and I went ahead and gave y'all a week on the test and the practice test. So if y'all want to take it now, you can. If you want to spend a little more time preparing, that's fine too. Because I really recommend, I looked at some folks and I don't know, I don't remember everybody off the top of my head, but like, because I if you haven't got everything up to 100%, that's going to help kind of clarify anywhere that maybe you still have some gaps for everyone. So I'd recommend going back and just starting with like the lower homework, anything you didn't get to 100, get it up. That's going to refresh everything. Make sure y'all are taking really good notes and kind of organize it. And then once you get all those up to 100, go back and take the practice test. And then anything you miss on the practice test, go through and see where, you know, maybe those mistakes were, because you'll start to notice like maybe patterns. A lot of times people will have like a gap in like one place or two places or something. And then the question identifiers are on the screen here. And that tells you what section we can pull these and we can be like, hey, well, maybe I need to go back and review 1.5. And you can even find these questions in your homework or in the textbook. And then we can kind of fix it there that way. And once you feel like you're ready and take the practice test a couple times, you'll see each time you do better. If you have questions, I am going to open class at 8 a.m. Like I was going to tell you all that too. So one of Tasani works and he's like, well, if you opened it early, I could come in. Because I did it last week. I'm going to start doing that just from now on, just to try and help everybody and make sure everybody's where they need to be. So if you need me, I'll probably be there at 8 a.m. barring some other commitment, just because sometimes I have meetings. And then going forward, like once you do that, we'll take the test. I am asking that you all submit the scratch paper because I want y'all to do test corrections. And we'll do it the same way we're talking about the practice test. You know, write down what you did, and then we can go back through and look at, you know, well, you know, maybe I got observational, but I picked the wrong part here, and be like, you know, it was because I missed this or that. And so we can kind of fix it, because the whole idea here is for you to learn and understand. So we'll do test corrections and we'll talk about the exact format of that the week after Tuesday, because that's when everybody takes it. But if y'all take it early and you want to talk to me about it beforehand, we can. I won't talk about it in class until probably a week from Tuesday, just because that's when everyone's going to be done, hopefully. Does that? Okay. And I'm emailing this out. I wrote it out to someone else this morning about something. I'm just going to use that and format it. So once we're done here, I'll email it out in like words, but that's where we're going. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay. So it's observational. The principal does not randomly assign students to wear or not wear uniforms, right? So we know that part. Does not assign a third party. This is different. That would be like something else. But what we're talking about is he doesn't randomly assign. So you're going to pick B for this one. Are we okay on that?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, let's go down. A group of educators want to determine how effective tutoring is in raising students' grades in a math class. So they arrange free tutoring for those who want it. Then they compute the final exam grades. So this is the one here we're going to talk about. So they arrange tutoring for those who want it. Then they compare final exam grades for the group that took advantage of the tutoring and the group that did not. So people are self-selecting into this, right? Suppose the group participating in tutoring tended to have higher grades on the exam. You know what I would say to this? This is almost like today, right? And I know people had to work today, but like, or even the people that watch this video versus the people who don't. So if you choose to come today or watch the video, you're probably going to do better on the test, right? But I would say, and this is kind of what they said, those are the people who are already motivated, right? Those are the people who are already working really hard, or the people that have the time to do it. So that's a confounding thing, right? Because you're not controlling and you're not randomly assigning people to groups. So this is going to be because it's an observational. So it says, does it show that the tutoring worked? If not, explain why. And suggest a confounding variable. So that's what they said. And that was what I was doing even before I looked at it. I was like, okay, we know it's observational because they're allowing students to either go to tutoring or not. They're not saying, I'm going to have two classes and one's going to be mandated tutoring and one's not, you know? So it's observational. And then, does this show that tutoring worked? So does it show it? I mean, it does show that tutoring tended to receive a higher grade, right? But it's not a causation. This would be an association. So that's back to the fact that you can only see it's associated. And for this one, the confounding variable would be those who chose to go to tutoring are probably people who, that would be a confounding variable. It may be the people who are already really highly motivated, right? And that's kind of what they said. It's cut off here, but I think that was the answer. If we go down, give me 1 second. The way that it wrote it, and I'm sorry it cut off. It's not the best at printing. So I think it said it's observational. The principal does not randomly, oh, wrong one. And it ran, that was the last one. Because this was observational, it only shows an association. It does not show the tutoring works. So it shows an association. We can say they're associated, but we can't say that it's caused, like it's saying that caused the higher grades. It could be that more motivated students, because that's what I was thinking, you know, like right away is those are the people who already are probably working pretty hard. So is everybody okay on that one?
Yeah.
I'm writing over. Okay, I was just making sure. So yeah, y'all let me know if you're not, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Cartilage. Cartilage is a smooth rubber-like padding that protects the long bones in the body of joints. A study by Liu et al. In Arthritis Care and Research found that women who drank 1 glass of milk a day had 32% thicker, healthier cartilage than women who did not. So researchers obtained information on milk consumption through questionnaires and measured cartilage through x-rays. In the article, research concluded our study suggested that the frequent milk intake may be associated with this. Does this study show it? Well, they even used the word here. What word did they use? They used the word associated, right? In their results. So it doesn't show it. It's not saying it's a cause. So they're saying it's associated. They also didn't randomly assign the people. So this one would be observational, right? And so no, we cannot conclude that it shows it. And I don't have the exact words on here again, but you're showing this is an observational because there's no mention of random assignment, right? So no, it's one of these two. No mention. Whoops. See, there you go. I'm getting tired because there is no mention of random assignment. And but it's not controlled, so it's observational. So really that was it. It's the first 4. So we're looking for an observational thing and there's no mention of random assignment, right? Are we okay with that?